Hey there, welcome to part 4 of Variations in Psychological Attributes. You remember how last class we discussed several ways in which intelligence can be measured? We also kind of explored how IQ was discovered by Alfred Binet in 1905. So, based out of all of those testing and exploring of ways in which intelligence could be measured, there are some misuses of these intelligence tests. Today's class will explore that alongside this whole concept of creativity. Let's dive into it already. So, looking at some of the misuses of intelligence tests, unfortunately, all of these tests they might make a child feel inferior to who they really are. Okay, so they might kind of directly impact the self respect of this individual and kind of adversely affect their performance in class. This happens because of the stigma that is attached to the child who is asked to use or make use of the special needs education departments present in schools. This poor performance on the test might also lead the parents to go into denial, right? Because of the discriminatory practices of giving special attention to the special needs of the child, parents, teachers, and elders in the society might not be able to really do justice because of the stigma that gets attached to this. Also, administering the test, which is biased in favor of the middle class and the higher class populations, may underestimate the IQ of the child coming from a disadvantaged section. So, again, that relies on the fairness of the test being conducted on this child, guys, because if this child is from a disadvantaged section of the society, it might not really be, favorable to administer a test which is biased in favor of the advantaged section of the society. Also, these tests they do not really capture the creative potential of individuals, right? Because intelligence test is not just about your cognitive capacity, but what about your creative potential? So the practical side of intelligence, which is creativity, gets absolutely dismissed. So intelligence it can be a potential factor for achievement in various spheres of life, but it's not it all. True. So those are some of the misuses of intelligence tests within the present day practices. We're going to now look at the intelligence testing in India. When it comes to India, back in the hood, Mr. S.M. Mohisen was the first who had pioneered to construct an intelligence test in Hindi. Also, Dr. C.H. Rice, he attempted to standardize Binet's test in Urdu and Punjabi. So please note these tests were already developed by these authors and these individuals from the Indian continent got up to then convert them into different various languages. Mahabalobis, they attempted to standardize Binet's tests in Bengali. Attempts were made by Indian researchers to develop norms for some of the Western tests, including Raven's progressive standard matrices, the WAIS, Alexander's pass-along tests, cube construction, and post block design. So all of these Indian researchers, they only made an attempt to kind of just develop Indian norms. You know how you have to make it culture fair? And what does it mean to be culture fair? I would like you to pin the answers in the comments below. Long and Mehta also prepared a mental measurement handbook which listed out 103 tests of intelligence in India that were available in various languages. So again, this is another test which was kind of, it was available in a lot of Indian languages to make it easily accessible to individuals within the Asian continent. The National Library of Education and Psychological Tests at the NCERT, they have also documented all of the Indian tests. So all of these Indian tests are available within CRT, and I'm very sure that your psychology teacher at school would have also conducted some interesting intelligence tests on you. Please make sure to measure your intelligence while we still study this chapter. I'm sure that you're going to be fascinated. Okay, so we've already discovered the concept of intelligence quotient. But what about emotional intelligence? Are we all emotional beings? Do we love to feel all of our feels? So today's lesson also focuses so much on emotional intelligence. So, if we have to define emotional intelligence, it is the awareness of feeling your emotions, and not just yours, but also others' emotions. If you are able to do that well, guys, you are said to have good emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence, it is a set of skills that underlie accurate appraisal, expression, and regulation of your emotions. It is actually the feeling side of intelligence, which is called as emotional intelligence. Okay, so this concept was first introduced by these two interesting people known as Salloway and Mayer, who considered that emotional intelligence is the ability to monitor one's own emotions and other emotions, to discriminate among them successfully, and to use information to guide one's thinking and action. What's important here is for you to underline these important keywords along the definition for you to be able to write them effectively, efficiently in your exam. EQ is used to express emotional intelligence in the same way as IQ is used to express intelligence. So just have that in mind. And what do you think? Emotionally, how intelligent are you? So, when it comes to emotional intelligence, guys, how can you tell individuals to be emotionally intelligent? Have we come across people who are so emotionally cold that even if you cry in front of them, they would not melt? And have you come across individuals who are absolutely emotional? They are so emotional, they express themselves freely, dramatically, all the time. So the variations in emotions also exist as variations did in intelligence. But the characteristic of those individuals who are emotionally intelligent are as follows. Let's look at this. As we go through the characteristics, try to identify at least one or two persons in your life who you think are emotionally intelligent based on these features. Feature number one, these individuals are very perceptive and sensitive to feelings and emotions. That means that these individuals can actually tell how you're feeling at a moment in time. They perceive and are sensitive to various types of emotions in others by noting their body language, voice, tone, and facial expression. This is feature number two, which is talking about bodily movement, language, action, voice, tone, and your facial features to be emotionally intelligent. Feature number three, they relate your emotions to your thoughts so that you can take them into account while solving problems and while talking. Interesting, right? Feature number four, they understand the powerful influence of nature and intensity of your emotions. So, by this, it means that they're able to understand how is it that things around you deeply influence you or affect you in ways that your emotions get riled up by them. Okay. The last feature, you're also able to control and regulate your emotions and expressions while dealing with self and others to achieve harmony and peace. So, oftentimes, when we are triggered, do you get flown away by your own emotions, or do we have the ability to be able to regulate the emotions, pivot our feelings, calibrate our emotions, come to a neutral place, and then act from it rather than reacting from a triggered space of emotions? So, guys, these are the several characteristics of individuals who are said to be emotionally intelligent persons. Okay, guys, the next part of this chapter, it explores the relationship between culture and intelligence. So, do you think that there is a relationship between the two? The culture that you live in, do you think that it has an impact? Does it really influence, molds, shapes your ability to be intelligent? Think about it. So, but before we go there, what really is culture? Is culture the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the traditions and festivals that we celebrate and follow? Is it to do with the greater celebrations, festivities, in the way we do things It's that small, sneaky aspect of our lives that creeps in on us and actually influences us in great ways. Because you can tell from an African who will be so different from an individual living in India, in Karnataka, or an individual living in Kashmir from that of an individual living in the south of New Delhi. Do you feel the differences between such individuals? If yes, that is the product of culture. To understand this phenomenon, we had a Russian psychologist called Vygotsky who was very fascinated with culture and its impact upon our intelligence. Why is it that collectivist countries are more emotional, which are also, which are focused on groups, as opposed to individualistic countries, which are focused so much on technology, which are not that emotional? So, does emotional intelligence, does the culture in which we breed, all of that have an impact on our intelligence? This got Vygotsky curious and he deep dived to understand the meaning of culture. Culture, according to Vygotsky, is a collective system of your customs, beliefs, attitudes, and achievement in art and literature. If you look at the history of India in terms of its cinema, in terms of the architecture, in terms of food and festivals and traditions which it has celebrated over the centuries, you will see to have its impact on individuals and how it's had very many societies flourish or demolish over time and time again. So Vygotsky argued that culture, it provides a social context in every individual's life which allows us to not just grow but also thrive, right? So it was found out by him that in less technologically developed societies, all of the social skills, emotional skills, these skills were thoroughly valued and they were really appreciated by all that lived within that space in time. However, technologically advanced societies, people, they favored personal achievement more. They also kind of appreciated abilities such as reasoning, judgment, which was considered to represent intelligence itself. So, do you see the disparity between collectivists and individualistic countries? The ones that focus more on technology as opposed to India, which is focused on agriculture and emotions and how it interplays with intelligence. Here, Sternberg's notion of contextual or practical intelligence implies that intelligence is a product of culture. Now, I want to know from all of you guys what you think about culture and intelligence, and I want you to pin that in the comments below. Vygotsky's theory also suggests that cultures, they have a life of their own. They kind of wrap the individual which it exists within, and the individual also grows and changes within the culture. It also gets influenced, largely impacted by the culture itself, and in the process, the end product, whatever comes about, is successful of whatever culture the intellect gets developed within. So he also had to say, interestingly, guys, that there are some specific mental functions, which are elementary things like crying, tending to mother's voice, sensitivity to smells, walking, running. All of them, they are more general and universal. However, there are larger mental functions such as problem solving, decision making, thinking. Most of this is largely dominated by the cultural product the individual belongs with. And that's what Vygotsky firmly believed in. Within culture, we will focus at individualistic and collectivist cultures. For this, we will focus on technological intelligence, which belongs to countries which are technologically advanced. These countries also focus a lot on individuality and individualistic needs and abilities. Whereas, on the contrary, we'll also focus on collectivist cultures, which are more to do with cultures which have integral intelligence. Each of these cultures have their own features, they have their own characteristics, which is what we will explore together now. Okay, if you look at technological intelligence, this kind of intelligence is basically in those countries which are technologically advanced. They have good child rearing practices and they believe in fostering skills of generalization, abstraction, speed, minimal moves, mental manipulation, in their children. So it'll be great, guys, if you can understand this concept and also underline it. So generalization is your ability to generalize amidst concepts. Abstraction is the ability to see the larger picture of things. Speed is your ability to very accurately, precisely, and quickly, crisply deal with things. Minimal moves, again, is to do with precision. And mental manipulation among children is the ability to be able to manipulate whatever information is coming your way for quicker, faster problem solving. Okay? Up next, it has certain domains when it comes to technological intelligence. Those domains are attention, analysis, observation, speed, achievement, orientation, and performance. All of these are domains of technological intelligence. Superior ability over these means that you're high on technological intelligence. Intelligence tests, they have been developed in Western cultures which look precisely at these domains, guys, which is listed in the green box here. And if you have set to own these skills, you are considered to be technologically intelligent. So this is all about technological intelligence. We will now move ahead to integral intelligence. Moving on to integral intelligence. Intelligence within the Indian context, guys, is said to be termed as integral intelligence. It is something that lays a lot of emphasis on connectivity. You know how being a collectivist, we are a very community-based culture where we're embedded deeply in all of the social agents with which we coexist. And it is so much to do with the social world and the environment around us. So integral intelligence, according to Indian thinkers, it is very holistic, it is very wholesome. It's something that's very complete. And it is said to pay a lot of attention to cognitive. So what it does essentially is that it pays a lot of attention to cognitive processes as well as non-cognitive processes and their integration. You know how technological intelligence focus so much on just the cognitive processes and their our ability to solve problems based out of those abilities. However, in the Indian context, as much focus is being paid to integration of not just the cognitive but also the non-cognitive amalgamation of both, which will help you essentially and very effectively to deal with your everyday circumstances meaningfully. So the domains of integral intelligence are to do with cognitive capacity, social competence, entrepreneurial competence, and emotional competence. Cognitive capacity, guys, implies your ability to use your mental frameworks, your mental operations meaningfully to find solutions to problems. Social competence is your ability to have social smartness, your street smartness, your ability to deal with social situations in a way that actually, it serves you and helps you to get ahead. Contrary to that, we have entrepreneurial competence, which is to do with your business ethics, your business sense. Are you able to sell what you're willingly wanting to sell effectively? Is your entrepreneurial competence. And emotional competence is your ability to have self-awareness of all the emotions which you feel, feeling all of those feels, expressing them carefully in a way that again serves you. And it's not just about understanding your own emotions and feelings, but also others' emotions and feelings. So this was a little bit about integral intelligence. If you have any questions, so forth, please pin them in the comments section below. Up ahead, we have an interesting concept of buddhi. Have you all heard of this Sanskrit word buddhi before? It's a very interesting phenomenon that was brought about in the age of enlightenment, and it's said that buddhi, it includes skills like mental effort, determined action, feelings, opinions, along with cognitive competence such as knowledge, discrimination, and understanding. If you had all of these abilities, according to J.P. Das, you were said to be an individual who had buddhi. So among other things, buddhi is actually the knowledge of one's own self based on conscience, will, and desire. So, therefore, buddhi has this very affective and motivational component besides a very strong cognitive component. So, what we're essentially saying here, guys, is that buddhi is that one phenomenon which not only is to do with your ability to be somebody who's very competent cognitively, but it is also someone who has that emotional connect, that intrinsic motivation to deal with things, to kind of bring about solutions to problems affectively. The word affect here means emotions. There is an effect and then there is an affect. Effect is the cause effect, affect is the emotional contribution to things. So emotionally, if you're able to deal with things in a manner that brings about cognition in ways that serves you, allows you to be somebody who is someone with a lot of buddhi. All right, guys, it's that time of the chapter to look at the concept of aptitude. So, you remember how we discussed aptitude in the beginning of the chapter as a psychological attribute, right? Can anyone recall the definition of aptitude? It is that underlying potential, remember? So we're going to explore more of that right now. Let's look at it together. Aptitude refers to special abilities in a particular field of activity. It is actually a combination of characteristics that includes your individual's capacity to acquire some specific knowledge or skill after training. So what this really means is that you have to have these underlying abilities, which if you do, can be picked up, can be trained, can be reinforced, can be harnessed into a greater capacity for you to carry out specific interesting skills which fascinate you or you feel passionate about. So yes, of course, there is a big difference between aptitude, intelligence, and interest. Let's look at it one by one. I would love for you to underline the important keywords as we go, or actually just write it. It'll help you practice as I speak it out loud. Okay, aptitude is that specific ability, that special, very special ability in a particular field of activity. It is a combination of characteristics that indicates an individual's capacity to acquire some specific knowledge or skill after training. Contrary to this, intelligence, again, we come up with another definition. It is that global capacity to understand the world, think rationally, use available resources effectively whenever faced with challenges. Interest, contrary to aptitude and intelligence, is an individual's preference for engaging in one or more specific activities relative to the others. There are some measurements to aptitude and interest. There are ways in which aptitude and interest can be measured. I'm sure when you came to grade 11 from grade 10, you actually took on an aptitude test that helps to identify what stream you would benefit from being with. Whether if you'd benefit from studying commerce or science or humanities is what this aptitude test measures for you. So aptitude tests, they're able to predict what an individual will be able to do if given the proper environment and training. Contrary to this, we have interest, which is assessment of the interest of students, which may help them to decide what subject or courses they would pursue comfortably and with pleasure. So interest is all about your preference. So further to aptitude, there are some types of aptitude tests, guys. These aptitude tests are of two types. When you took on this test, maybe you would have done the general aptitude test, but there are specialized aptitude tests and then there are general aptitude tests. These specialized tests, they focus upon specific abilities of you. However, a generalized test will look at a more generic understanding of what skills and abilities do you excel at. There are some independent aptitude tests as well. There are clerical aptitude tests, mechanical, numerical, typing aptitude, independent aptitude tests. Multiple aptitude tests also exist. These very specifically help to identify, and guys, a lot of schools use these tests. They are like a battery of tests. A battery of tests implies a lot of different tests which are conducted upon the individual to measure their aptitude in various areas. For example, a differential aptitude test or a general aptitude test battery, or the armed services vocational aptitude battery. One such test is this generalized, is the differential aptitude test, which is listed here around my little circle, and it encircles the various domains on which it measures you. So it kind of measures you on verbal reasoning, on numerical reasoning, on abstract reasoning, on clerical speed and accuracy, on mechanical reasoning, on spatial relations, spelling, and language use. These are the various domains that DAT, which is the differential aptitude test, it measures you upon. Okay, so the last part of this chapter, guys, it focuses on creativity and intelligence. Creativity and intelligence is a very interesting phenomenon, and for years, a lot of theorists have debated upon whether if creativity and intelligence are a must, do they necessarily need to coexist, or are they independent of each other enough on their own, or whether if it's important to be intelligent if you're creative, or creative if you're intelligent, and so forth. What this really is about, let's explore. Now let's look at the last part of the chapter that talks about creativity and intelligence. Guys, what is creativity? Have you come across individuals who display exceptional abilities in various fields? It could be sports, could be art, could be dancing, could be crafts, it could be the ability to speak, discuss, and debate. Creativity is that ability which is extraordinary, and it's not confined to the specifics of, of mere intelligence. So creativity, it's a notch ahead of intelligence in beautiful ways wherein it consists of divergent thinking, unlike intelligence, which is more to do with a bit of convergent thinking. Okay, so there is evidence of creativity and intelligence being necessary for each other, of having a link and having no link. So what do you think? What creativity is about? Is it necessary to be intelligent to be creative? Or can creativity be off on its own? So a lot of intelligence tests, they measure the person's global cognitive ability to profit from schooling. On the contrary, creativity tests are those tests which are more open-ended. They're not limited to a specific person or thing, or the ability to solve problems. They are more open-ended in a way that they allow you to go off in different directions without any specifics, and to think of the outcomes in never thought of before ways. Very interestingly, intelligence tests, they mostly involve convergent thinking, which is the kind of thinking that all individuals usually dwell towards. It may include things like memory, logical reasoning, accuracy, perceptual ability, and clear thinking, with very little expression of spontaneity, originality, and imagination. On the contrary, creative tests are all about the expression of spontaneity. They consist of immense imagination and those things which are off the beaten track. It is that ability to see new relationships between seemingly unrelated things. Now that we know a little bit about creativity and intelligence, you might wonder, what is the link between the two? So there has been some evidence of a positive link, and of course there's some other evidence of no link at all. So for a positive link, all creative acts require some minimum ability to acquire knowledge, capacity to comprehend, retrieve, and retain. That means that anything that is of creative nature will require some kind of an intelligence, guys. Okay, so creative writers, for example, they need the ability to deal with language, and there is language use, which is a component of intelligence. So artists, they must be able to understand the effect that it will be produced by a particular technique of painting. So that also is a form of intelligence. Okay, so yes, some amount of intelligence is necessary for you to be creative, is what the positive link suggests. On the contrary, there is also a notion of no link. It was found out that Terman, that individuals with high IQ were not necessarily creative. At the same time, creative ideas would come from persons who did not have very high IQ. I'm sure that a lot of us will believe with this little square to the right out here for no link. So researchers, they have found both very high and very low levels of creativity in very highly intelligent individuals, children, okay, and in fact even of average intelligence. So the same person, thus it can be very creative as well as intelligent, but not necessarily that intelligent in the conventional sense. That's all about the link of creativity and intelligence. This sums up with the positive link of a relationship between the two and no link between creativity and intelligence. With this, guys, we come to the end of chapter 1, which was all about variations in psychological attributes. I'm sure that you've enjoyed exploring intelligence with me. If there are any further questions, please make sure to pin them in the comments section and I will get back to you. Happy learning and thank you for your attention and focus. Bye bye.